So one of the ways that I had grief when I got to maintenance is that I'm the same body shape I was when I was bigger. You know, there's an expression in addiction recovery, once a pickle, always a pickle. Well, once an apple, always an apple. I am apple shaped. I have always carried my weight right in the middle. And even as I've lost weight, I continue to be apple shaped. And this is something that grieved me when I would go clothing shopping, because I would walk into the store expecting to wear things and look like the teenagers at high school looked that I never got to emulate. And I walk in and try and put on those same pants because they're back in style, and they still don't fit me properly. I still have a bigger waist than I do the size of my legs. So my pants still give me a little bit of a muffin top, even though the legs and butt are loose. I still, if I want my pants to fit well, I have to wear like yoga pant type things or jeggings or stuff like that. And I've even had to convey that to store clerks where I've said, I don't think your style works for my shape. And they're like, oh, that's weird because you're tiny. I'm like, yeah, well, your stuff isn't made for an apple shaped body. So these are some of the ways that I've moved through it is actually going to stores and trying things on and coming to this self-acceptance. I've also done a lot of mirror talk, and that's where you just standing in front of my mirror wearing next to nothing and just accepting my body the way it is, poking, prodding, stretching the skin, accepting it, loving it, hugging it. I've also spent time working on body dysmorphia, because that's kind of another part of it, is not even realizing the size that I am and what I've had to do with that. Honestly, and this sounds a little bit shallow and weird, but when we're out in public and I'm with my husband, he's kind of my seeing eye dog. I will look around and I'll say, Curtis, am I bigger or smaller than that person over there? And he'll tell me, he'll be like, no, you're smaller than that person. And my brain can't conceptualize that. And it's really, really tricky. So it's actually sometimes good to involve other people in that process of body dysmorphia and of grieving what we hoped would be, but what isn't. So one thing that I wasn't expecting when I arrived in maintenance is that that's the moment when you have to face the reality of, oh, I am doing this long term. It's not just a short-term experiment for weight loss. This is my new normal. And even though we do this one day at a time, when you arrive in maintenance, there's kind of this forever mindset trip up that you have to work through and eventually come back around to one day at a time. But when I was working through some of those forever thoughts, I had to think about what I was letting go of. And one of the things I let go of is that identity of being the baker in the family and being someone who was really gifted at baking. And it's not only just the talent and the skill, but it's the cultural aspects of that as well. Recognizing that part of my Ukrainian Russian heritage is passed down through these baked NMFs that I no longer desire to make because of the impact they have on the health of my family, the people around me. So I had to really let that go. I think one of the biggest beliefs I had to let go of when I arrived in maintenance is that maintenance is a superior state of existence. In every other plan I've done, when someone gets to maintenance, they're usually like, now I'm in maintenance, so I get to do this and I get to have this exception because I'm in maintenance and all that kind of talk. And it made it seem as though those in weight loss are under some kind of like condescending lower class state of existence. And then when you get to maintenance, then you're like upper class or something. And when you get to maintenance in an addiction recovery program, it's all still just the same. There is nothing different. And if I do anything differently than I did in weight loss, I'm going to be compromising my recovery to the same extent. So dismissing those lies about maintenance looking different than weight loss and realizing that we're all on the same level. And that was incredibly freeing for me because I never wanted to be up here. So when I got to maintenance and had to release this belief that somehow maintenance was better, I felt a tremendous sense of relief and freedom, and like all the pressure was off because I could just continue being me and working my program in the same big, beautiful, bright way that I always have. So getting to maintenance and really living in freedom, I had to let go of the belief that food was somehow emotionally necessary. And I began to realize that no, food is a very primal way of meeting our emotional needs. It is not congruent with our elevated state of being that we get to as we realize who we are and recognize our self-worth and start showing ourselves love. And so I had to develop new tools for self-soothing. And I think some of the tools that I developed are the most intangible. It's really grace. Just grace upon grace upon grace. Where I used to use caffeine to push through, I take a nap. Where I used to just eat my feelings so I wouldn't feel bad, I now allow myself to feel bad. I allow myself to drop the ball. I allow myself to sit with that feeling and wait, because you know what? It will pass. No emotion is a never-ending flow of water. There is always an end. It's just a bucket, and it's going to flow, and the bucket's going to empty. And I recognize that and work through those things with grace, allowing myself to make mistakes, allowing myself to fail, allowing myself the rest I need, instead of eating over it, caffeinating it, and hating myself through it. I think one of the biggest bounties of being in maintenance and having a maintenance plan that is solid, where you're not breaking your lines and you're achieving automaticity, is being able to run my program in autopilot and focusing on other things with my life, figuring out who I am, figuring out what's my purpose in this life, why am I here, and knowing that my program is running itself. Now, you still have to put gas in the tank in order for autopilot to work. So I still work my program. I'm writing my food down every night. I'm doing my habits. I have my mastermind group. I have my buddies. I'm on that accountability call. Autopilot does not mean we throw our program away. Autopilot means those things are automatic. So those things that took effort at the beginning are now just second nature, and habits that I do the same as I blink my eyes. Like, they just happen when they need to happen. And therefore I'm able to focus on my artwork, my children and their learning, my husband and his goals and dreams. And my life is so much bigger and brighter and expanded because my food is taking up such a smaller chunk of my pie chart than it used to.